So hello, everyone. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. I'm Ken DeCesso from Revelwood. And of course, Revelwood is a Workday Adaptive Planning business partner. So just a few quick notes as we get going. We really should be finished right in around 45 minutes. I will be talking very quickly today, but during the time, I've got everyone muted just because, there's always a lot of background noise. But there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. If you have a question, go ahead and type it in. I'll hope to see it and hope to be able to answer it, but certainly if I can't, then I will make sure you get an answer to your question. I know that some of you are on this call out of maybe just general curiosity, right? General personal education around FP&A automation. That's great. Welcome. Some of you might be here because you actually are looking forward to or having an initiative in this area. Either way, certainly would appreciate you maybe taking 15 minutes with us at some point after the call. So in the next day or so, myself, one of my coworkers will be reaching out to you maybe with a meeting invite or something, just for 15 minutes. Have a quick conversation. There's nothing that commits you to anything, of course. Just would love to hear what your thoughts are, what you're doing, your exposure to these types of things, et cetera. So we'd appreciate that. And then one final thing as we get going, today's session is really just to give you a glimpse into the adaptive planning solution. You're not going to get to see everything in 45 minutes. As fast as I talk and as fast as I go, there's no way. So I'm trying to give you the highlights. I'm trying to give you what I think are the things that are most used by people, the things that you need to hear and understand first. But certainly there's a lot more to see and understand. I have a few PowerPoint slides, only a couple, probably won't take more than 30 seconds. So we'll get into it right now. So adaptive planning really is a solution for what I'll call company-wide planning, right? Whether you need to do modeling, whether you need to do, oops, sorry, I went too far, planning, whether you're doing your reporting, analyzing, it really is one solution that can do all those things with all that data in one place. And it's a great, well-connected solution. It's built in the cloud. It's a cloud solution. And it's really different than most any others out there. There is no coding in adaptive planning. There is no having to, for example, sync cubes together, do those sorts of things that we see with a lot of the cube architectures that are out there in the marketplace. And you're going to see a lot of this today. I think you're really going to enjoy it. It's based on something called the elastic hypercube technology. That's a patented technology. And all that really means for you as a user is it scales. So as you need more processing power, right, you just get it from the platform. So your response times are always going to be good. You don't have to worry about having too many dimensions and the processing that needs to take place to recalculate data. You don't have to worry about the number of reports. You're not limited to the number of versions. You don't have disk limits, all those sorts of things. So it's a very scalable and intelligent solution in that regard. But here's the amazing thing. It's really easy to use. And this has been validated over and over again. If you look at organizations like Gartner, Forrester, Nucleus Research, they're always rating adaptive planning as #1 in things like ease to use and customer experience and usability, et cetera. And it can be used across any type of organization. With now 5,600, it's now over 5,800 customers worldwide across virtually any industry. It's really a platform that can be used by most any organization. And I think Revelwood certainly has, implemented across most industries. And the reason they're so big, quite frankly, is because they don't lose customers. Workday Adaptive Planning has a 97% customer retention rating. So we add customers every year, don't really lose many. I did lose a customer. They get purchased every once in a while, right? And they go away, types of things like that. But people really love the solution and they stick with it. So that's why we probably have 4 times as many as I would say most of our competitors out there in terms of customers, because they churn and they churn quickly. Okay, that's all I want to talk to you slideware today. Let's go ahead and actually move into the demo itself. Okay, to log into adaptive planning, really easy. Anything that can generate a URL and get to the web, you can log in. Your phone, your tablet, your computer, doesn't matter. You go to adaptiveplanning.com and you click login. Once you enter in your credentials, you come to the splash page. Splash page here, very generic. It can be customized to your organization. So you could put links on there, information that you want people to see, whatever you want, you can have on your splash page. Almost everything that you're going to do is driven by and through, well, a lot of it is driven through this menu right here. Now, what I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to talk through some of these. I can't show them all. I'm going to talk through so you know they exist. Sheets, we're going to go into sheets. Sheets are basically, think of them as the templates where you enter data. So if you're in a budget, you're in a forecast, you will be entering data into templates. They're called sheets. Assumptions. Assumptions is a place where you can store data, like a global assumption for something. If you have a training dollar associated with a new employee, any sort of standard thing that you want to enter once and have it apply everywhere in the system, you can put it in the assumption section. Unlike solutions that truly use Excel as their sort of core tool, in those, you have to change assumptions in all the different sheets that you might have. Here, you can make an assumption in one place in this assumption section, and wherever it's used, when you update it, that data is automatically recalculated. Reports we're going to go into, it's just what you would think, reports, as well as dashboards we're going to go into, and a dashboard, you'll see that, you know what that is. Consolidation, if you do a true accounting consolidation, you will be able to use this. It is true like doing eliminations, account eliminations and such. So it is a true accounting consolidation. Don't get that confused with just a consolidation of data up and down your level structure or tree, right? It is true accounting consolidation, doing eliminations and such. Process and workflow. So this is where some people use this, some people don't. I'm going to go ahead and show you this real quick. Process allows you as a finance team to create workflows for individual users to follow when they're having to execute tasks. So say someone doesn't go into the system very often, you want to step them through what they need to do. Go to this budget template and enter this data. Here are the directions to do it. Click here, it goes to that template, etc. And so you can create a series of tasks for an individual user to follow. This, what you're looking at here, is actually the dashboard that an administrator or finance person would see that has security access to it, which allows you to see, open tasks across all your users, things that are running late, things that are in progress, things that are complete. I don't want to get too heavy into that. Some people use this, some people don't, because any end user can go directly to those same sheets through the menu system if they choose to do so. So if you use that or not is dependent on your organization and sort of how you want to approach it. Modeling. Modeling is kind of like the back end of adaptive planning, what I would almost call the administration. And since there is no coding, right, everything is point and click in adaptive planning. Whether there's a drop-down menu where you select something, you click a checkbox, whatever it is, that's the way adaptive planning works. And everything is connected together in the back end. You don't have to worry about connecting it together for the system. So here's where you do things like create versions. You might have a budget, you might have a forecast, you might have a second version of your forecast. We're going to go into that a little later. Time, where you develop your time strategy, days rolling into weeks, rolling into quarters, rolling into months, whatever your time strategy is, you define it here. Levels, this is like your organization structure, so to speak. So in this example that we're looking at today, here's the level structure that this example company is made up of. Of course, this doesn't have to be you. Yours will be put in here differently, right? So let me show you how easy it is to use Adaptive. Let's just say I wanted to add a new level in here, right? I have my United States, I have all these sales offices. I add a new sales territory somewhere and I want to put it in, right? All I have to do is to create new level, give it a name, and I'm just going to call it demo level. Okay. I'm going to let it roll up to United States. That's fine. And there's other things that I could define. And I just wanted to do this to show you how it works with just checkboxes and definitions. So really easy to do. And then I save it. Now you notice here it saved the demo level that will ultimately roll up to the United States. Now you notice I just created that because I'm going to show you that and how that has already been pushed out to the entire system just in a minute or so. Okay, so that's sort of how modeling and administration works. this administration is actually security. A note about security, there's a number of different ways to secure the data, right? By levels, by dimensions. So there's plenty of ways that you'll be able to secure the data so people can get to and see and change only the things they're allowed to do. So let's put that aside for now. Know that that is there. And it's, I say relatively straightforward. You don't have to use all the pieces of security that are available, just depending on how granular you want to get. Integration is another thing. Obviously, we have to integrate with many, many different systems. Adaptive planning has been integrated with hundreds of systems. Obviously, the general ledgers, but also HR systems, sales systems, other operational systems that are producing things like manufacturing data. Adaptive planning has its own integration tool called an ETL, extract, transform, and load. So getting to that data is, we're used to doing it. It's fairly straightforward. You could do it on a scheduled basis if you choose, such that maybe it occurs every night at 2 o'clock. Or you can go in and click a button and have it happen on demand. There's lots of different choices for how that's done. But rest assured, we're pretty confident that we will be able to get the data that you need and bring it into the system. Okay, so let's get into the meat of stuff. The first thing I wanted to really go into and show you are these sheets. So in any system, you'll have any number of sheets, right? And all these different sheets are connected together. So the first sheet I'll take you into is what I would call a typical expense planning sheet. It's just rows and columns. We have our accounts down our rows and our months across our columns. Now, in almost everything you see in adaptive planning, you always have things like the version. Here, I've got lots of different versions, but I'm in my forecast version right now. And what I'm currently planning for is sales north. I know I've got good data in there. Now, I just clicked on this for the first time since we got in, and you see this demo level? Well, it already exists in this structure because I created it first thing when we came in. This demo level did not exist until I created it and you saw it on the screen. Adaptive automatically knows what to do with it. And now it's going to be available through our entire system where appropriate. Now, if I had security, I can go into any of these other parts of the organization and do planning. But if, say, I was the manager and all I had access to was Sales North, the only thing I would see in this dropdown is Sales North. Okay? So again, security. So listen, like most things in adaptive planning, what you see isn't just what you get. You get a lot more. It's always interactive and always flexible. So for instance, this particular planning sheet, right, which is just months across the top. If I didn't want it, if I'm a user and I needed to see it a little bit differently, I could simply click on this button and look what I could do. I can change what I'm looking at. So let's go ahead and instead of just looking at the fiscal 2020 year only, let's show it. Let's also show the months. So now, as you can see, as I go across my 2020 data, I'm now seeing it by month. So maybe I had it annually, but I said, what did I do in June of 2020? I can click change it, go see it. And if I want to, I can now just go back to my default view, which had it only showing the year. So lots of different ways that you can look at the data from this, even this one particular sheet, maybe based on a user. Now, color coding is important. You'll see any number in green is an actual, meaning it was brought in from some other system as an actual number, okay? Anything in gray with a grayed out cell means you can't enter the data in it. It's either maybe being calculated by a formula, maybe it's coming from and connected to another sheet, but you can't actually enter data into it. The only thing you could physically enter data into on this particular sheet are cells that have a white background. And of course, anything in the light blue is a subtotal of some sort, as you can see. So what else here? Oh, if there's a triangle in the upper right, that means there's a note. Here is admin hired. Very easy to enter notes. All I would do is click on the cell, hit add note, and I could enter in anything I want. Now, here's the thing about notes. That note stays with that intersection of data wherever it goes. So in this particular cell here, right, this is the intersection of my account 6311 for my forecast for sales north in April of 2021. That's a very specific intersection of data. If I were to show that on a report, I would have the option in that report to display that note if I choose to. I don't have to, but I can if I want to. So those notes stay with that particular intersection of data. Anything with a blue cell in it, I'm sorry, a blue triangle in the bottom corner, well, like new hire training, it's got a blue cell, means it has a formula in it. And that formula can be seen right here. Now, the formulas, if you're only used to Excel, yeah, they take a little bit of getting used to. Most of our customers, it takes like a week or two. They're actually really easy because they're in your language. Although this says personnel, start month, new hire sales training, if that wasn't the way your wording was for new hire sales training, maybe you just used, I don't know, NHST, well, that's what it would say. We can make that nomenclature to be what you want it to be. The only thing specific in this formula is the fact that we use ACCT, which stands for account, which is any piece of data, and ASSUM, which means it comes from the assumption section of the tool. The star is a star, right? It's a multiplication. So formulas are actually really easy. People get used to them really quickly and actually like them because you can look at it and understand what the heck is going on. Okay, so to enter data, listen, real easy. I can go down here and I can just go ahead and start entering data going across. All right, pretty easy to do. I'm going to go ahead and save that. I'm saving it for a specific reason, so just bear with me while I go ahead and save some of these things. I could also enter something and then maybe copy it to the end. Okay, so pretty easy to do. And there's a lot of shortcuts. If you look down here, there's in the bottom right hand of your screen, there's a whole bunch of different shortcuts. You'll recognize a lot of them because we use them in Excel all the time. Okay, but we may not always know what we want in every individual month. So I could actually enter what I want my total to be for the year. Maybe I'm going to put 50,000 here. And it's going to ask me, how do I want to break that back over those open months? And it gives me a number of different options, or I could actually create a calculation that is a custom breakback. I'm just going to do it proportionally for now. So what it's done is it's taken this 50,000, it's actually subtracted out the actuals already for the year, and then spread the remainder across the open months proportionally. And since we had 200 in there in every month, of course, I would have expected those numbers to now all be the same. Now, kind of neat, I could also do the same thing. Remember how we went and changed how we were looking at the screen? Well, let's say I want to look at my current year with quarter summaries in there. Okay, so I now have, you can see April, May, June, quarter 2, July, August, September, Q3, October, November, December, etc. I could actually go in there now and I could change just this quarter. And it'll give me the same breakback capability, except now it's breaking it back only for that particular quarter. So kind of neat way to be able to look at things and do things. So getting data in is really pretty straightforward in the system. Now, one of the great things about adaptive planning is this thing called Explore Cell. It allows you to go from a piece of data and find out everything you need to know about it. I'm going to go into Explore Cell several times throughout today's demonstration. Right now, I want to show you something pretty straightforward. Here it is, Explore Cell. Oops, I don't want to be on that one. Yeah, I did, maintenance. So I've changed that maintenance account several times. Well, adaptive planning has a view audit trail, an audit trail, so I can get it right from Cell Explorer. And I can immediately see the changes that I made. So here I am, Ken DeCessa, October 21st. I started with none, I changed it to 100. I went from 100 to 200, from 200 to that was the first time we did the breakback. And then when we did the quarterly breakback, it went from $3,400 to $6,600 approximately. Now, there's a much more detailed audit trail reporting capability where you can look at any changes a person made and things like that. But that just gives you an idea from a very specific cell. How can you can look at that? So you come in one morning, something's changed, you go, what the heck changed? You can click on Explore Cell and quickly go and see what changed. So kind of a neat part of the solution overall. Now, someone already asked a question. I appreciate the question. Early on, I mentioned where data can come from in these grayed out cells, either a formula or from another sheet. So adaptive planning can connect sheets together. So for example, here is a salary number. Okay, most people just don't type in the total salaries for the company in their plan. Most people are doing some level of detailed planning. We call it workforce planning. You might call it staff planning, salary planning, whatever you want. Well, if I go to that cell, go to Explore Cell again, say, well, where is that salary and wage number coming from? You can see it's coming from personnel formula and my workforce planning sheet. So right from that cell, I've now gone into the workforce planning sheet where all the detail is being kept for those employees. Now, again, I'm in my forecast just for Sales North. Now, you notice that this sheet actually looks a little different. This is called a model sheet. In a model sheet, it's more like you're collecting records of data. So for example, you've got a person's name, their title, their residence for tax purposes, just a general comment field, a start date and end date, hours per week, so forth and so on. Now, this is typical workforce planning, but you could have anything you want in here. You don't have to have this stuff. You could have more stuff in here. We'll build that out the way you need it, right? That's the whole point of adaptive planning. But my point bringing into this sheet is one, what it's doing now is it's taking the total salaries from these people right here, and that's the number that you're seeing right here, 43,558. So it's kind of connected the two sheets. So you can do your detail planning here, but then load the total into that particular account on your expense planning sheet. Now, a few quick things about this sheet as well is, you can have drop-down boxes. You can do date logic in it, selectors, all that sort of stuff. So there's lots of different ways to use this sheet. You could actually split people, split rows if you have employees that say, work for one department some of the time, another department some of the time. It could be split, all kinds of stuff you could do with it. But this is called the model sheet. And that's how adaptive planning connects data together from various elements throughout all your models and your plans, okay, through this connecting of sheets. Okay, now, since we're talking about sheets and we're talking about planning, there is one other type of sheet I want to show you. It's called a cube sheet. Now, I know people immediately think of the cube databases. So you could kind of think of it that way. It's just another type of sheet that allows you to enter data, but look at it in a very granular level. And my product revenue sheet is one where I have this cube sheet. So here's a cube sheet. You'll notice here that I've got a whole series of dimensions exposed, and I can pick which ones I want up on any given sheet, right? And so I can get very granular in selecting these levers and pulling them on and off to look at the data by level, by customer specific, by product, all these buys, right? I can do that. But I could also take things like my level and move it to my column. So in this case now, I'm looking at all my accounts detail, my accounts sales details by my levels going across my columns, right? I'll put that back. I could also maybe pivot this sheet a little bit by taking, let's take my levels again and put it over units. And now you can see I'm looking at all my levels here. And then these are all units by the months. There's different ways to slice and dice your data and enter data depending on how granular you want to get. Now, what sheet you use is depending on the use case that you're trying to enter data for. Quite frankly, most people don't use a cube sheet for a lot of data entry because, there's a lot of moving parts to it. It's usually, finance people using cube sheets, pretty much end users, we advise you to stay away from them. They usually don't have this level of detail needed. Okay, so that gives you an idea of sheets and how they fit into the entire system. And I hope that's making sense for you. So again, remember, this is actually a forecast, right? Because I've got 3 months of actuals that have actually already been brought into the system. And in this case, I'm just forecasting out my remaining months. If this was a brand new budget, all these months would be open for entry, right? And as the new month came in, I'd say, okay, bring my January actuals in. It would bring it in, turn it green, and you have the remainder. So really, forecasting and budgeting are very similar. You can build them out to be very similar. You may not, you may forecast at a different level. You may use drivers. You may forecast at a much higher level. It's entirely up to you. We can build out the templates any way you need. Okay, so let's keep moving on here. The next thing I wanted to show you are the dashboards. All right, so dashboards, when you go into dashboard, you can tile them in any number of ways. So these are different groupings, okay? I'm gonna go into my company summary dashboard, which consists of a number of different tabs across the top. You can just include, information for people if you'd like. But here's what dashboards look like. I'm just gonna flip through some of these so you can kind of get an idea of what they look like. There's about, I think, 13 different visualizations of dashboards. And it's not just finance data. You can put in data like daily orders, production type of data as well. Okay, so you could do a number of different things in terms of displaying data within adaptive planning. We have levers like we do in most screens where you can click on different times, different levels. If you have different currencies, you can switch that as well. Adaptive planning fully supports, FX. Typically, you're planning at the leaf node, and then that's rolling up to a parent. Parent has a certain definition of currency. It translates it as it goes up automatically. You don't have to worry about it. Other things you can do here, you can take snapshots and you can schedule snapshots if you want. You can go into sort of like a PowerPoint mode if you want. So there's some different neat things that help you use this. But for the most part, people are going to look at this and they're going to want to investigate data, right? They might say, hey, tell me a little bit more. I want to drill into this revenue number here. Well, with adaptive planning, everything is automatically connected. So I click on it and I'm automatically exposed to these relevant dimensions. And you don't have to build out drill paths, right? You don't have to say, well, I want to look at it by this, by this, by this. And then I want to look at it by this, by this, by this. You could just go ahead and select how you want to do it on the fly. So let's look at this by location. Then let's take Great Britain and look at it by company. There's company. I saw it here earlier. Let's look at it by customer instead. Okay. If I wanted to go back and look at it by, I don't know, product, I could look at it by product, right? I can take product by customer. So I can just continue to drill down any way I want. And what's even better, if I actually wanted to get into the data, the detailed data associated with that number, I can go ahead and explore and go into, in this case, it's product revenue. So I'm right back into that product revenue sheet that we looked at earlier. So what Adaptive allows you to do, you don't always have to go back out and go to a menu and look at things. You can, because this product revenue sheet is the exact same sheet that we looked at right here when we clicked on it. It just allowed you to get to it from a very different path and allowed you to do it really easily as well. Okay. So let's go ahead. I want to show you how to build a dashboard because I think it's really important to understand how easy dashboards are to create. So I'm going to click new. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to give it my name. Okay. And hit edit, and I'm giving the canvas. Now, how do I build a dashboard? Real simple. If you notice over here on the left, I've got all my I've I've got all my my charts and graphs that I can pick from. This is a file cabinet. This contains all the data that I have within the system. Now, this is not just GL data, right? This is data that's calculated in the system. These are things that might be brought in from other places other than the general ledger. It's pretty much every piece of data I have in the system calculated or brought in from an outside source. So how I would use this is I would simply drag the chart on that I want, pick a piece of data. I can format it here a number of ways. Let's just give this chart a name. There's lots of different ways. I can't get into all this now, but there's ways you can format it nicely. And then this is going to tell me how I want this particular data broken down, because obviously right now, it's just was the total company. So there we have, we broke it down by location. And that quickly, I have a pie chart of my operating expenses by location. Let's go ahead and pick a KPI. Typically, we have what? Metrics and KPIs, gross margin. Done. It's really easy. And here's the great thing. As soon as I've committed that dashboard, all this data, guess what? Is now connected. And I can start using it and drill right into it. I don't have to run processes to get data to move from place to place. You know, a lot of cube-based systems have data that moves from place to place. I don't have to build out another model to look at this data any other way. I can just go in and look at this data right away. So that's the awesome thing about it. Okay, got to keep moving. Want to move on to reports now. So again, reports right from here. I'm going to go into a current month variance report. This is what I would call the meat and potatoes reporting of adaptive planning. Most finance people use this: columns, rows, and numbers, right? That's what we all love. But these reports, again, we have our selectors, but they're not static. They never are, right? You're going to be able to look at a report like this, format it any way you want, and you're going to be able to drill down into it. So for example, I see here that, hey, something's not right. My other T&E is $2.7 million. It's supposed to be $152,000. Why is that? Well, I could take this one report, right, because it's not static, and I could flip that one account by level. So now I'm looking at that account 6450 other T&E by all my levels, and I could obviously see that sales north is the problem. And I could say, well, I was expecting $13,000 in sales north. Why is that? I go into my Explore cell. I say, well, here's my formula. Time minus 12, so same time last year, times an inflation rate. And here's the evaluated formula. So 13,000 increased by about 2.85%. So that's what I was supposed to have. Well, what did I have? I had $2.6 million. Why is that? Well, I can go into Explore cell again, and I can say drill into transactions. Yes, adaptive planning will bring in all your general ledger transactions into the system. And if I hit drill transactions, I can see there were two transactions for that level. One was for $2.63 million. It was supposed to be a $2,600 lunch, right? Still the example that I made up to make the point, but now I can go back to accounting and say, hey, listen, I know exactly where the problem is. It's in this one particular area. So really kind of a neat place to be able to look at it. And you know, those transactions were just for sales north, right? Obviously you'll have many more transactions than that. And depending on what level you click at when you go into those detailed transactions, if I were to click at North America or United States, I would see all the transactions for United States. I clicked at it at the lowest level, so all I saw was the transaction specific to sales north. Okay. You'll notice the notes down here. I mentioned them earlier. These are different notes for the different the data points that we were talking about earlier, and I can change where those notes are seen, in line, in column, etc. But what I want to do now really is I want to create a report again because I want to show you just how easy this all can be. All right, so I'm going to go add new. Don't worry about what a matrix report is right now, right? We're just going to go ahead and do that. So this becomes drag and drop again, right? So let's go ahead and pick some accounts to show. Again, this is the same set of data that I saw from my dashboard when I was creating it. Let's grab operating expenses. Let's grab some metrics. I'm putting some spacing in there. Across the top, let's go ahead and compare a couple of different versions. Let's go with my working budget and my forecast. Okay, so it's just drag and drop. Let's put a calculation there. Everyone wants a variance calculation. Change the properties on it. VAR dollar. Let's turn things red when they're bad. That's good there. This is going to be a very simple report. Let's go ahead and put time here. Okay. Let's go ahead and also put the levels here. We picked 2020, and let's drag level over to parameters. So when I parameterize it, that means it's going to allow me to drop it down and pick something else when I create the report. So very basic report here, right? I'm not doing a lot of formatting or anything, but when I run that report, there it is. All my operating expenses compares to my working budget with the variance. And again, everything is immediately drillable, right? I can go into Cell Explorer and I can go into different sheets that contain that data. So as soon as I hit save, we're allowed to see it. I could snapshot these reports and send them out to people. So there's a bunch of different things that we can do with it. Okay, got about 7 minutes left. I want to show you real quick. I actually failed to show you something that I just want you to see real quick because I think it's kind of a neat part of adaptive planning. And that is within a dashboard, you can actually have a sheet, a planning sheet. So remember I created that dashboard earlier, there it is. But if I go into this particular tab right here, you'll notice I have my visualizations, but I have my workforce planning sheet, right? We all recognize this workforce planning sheet by now. So if all someone needed to do was enter data into one sheet, I may consider giving them a dashboard with that sheet in it. And as they enter data, they'll see their visualizations change. You'll see numbers update. Just kind of a cool thing that can be used in a number of different ways. And I think is pretty unique for adaptive planning to be able to combine the dashboards with an actual planning sheet itself. Okay. The last aspect of reporting I want to go into with adaptive planning is Office Connect. Now, Office Connect actually connects the data from adaptive planning to Excel, PowerPoint, and Word. Okay, now I have an Excel document up in front of me. You'll notice that it has an Office Connect add-in in it. Okay, when I click link cells, everything that lights up is coming from the databases of adaptive planning. So you can combine that with just normal sort of cells that have regular old Excel expressions in them, right? You can see that right there. So it's a good combination of those types of things. So people use this for like board reporting, executive reporting, that sort of thing, right? Now, it's usually standardized, right? It's something you do every, say, month and you give out to people. So what do you have to do? You have to update it. Well, how do you update it? Well, actually, really easy. Watch this. Go to my properties. I'd say, well, my March actuals are in. Go ahead and update it. I'm going to hit refresh. And I'm going to hit all sheets. It'll update all these tabs down at the bottom. So it'll take a few seconds. You notice this says February 2021. Bam, now it's March 2021. So just like that, everything is now March. I've gone and updated all my data to be through March of 2021. So really easy to do, and not all that hard to add to either. So for example, I've left some blank spaces here. I left this line taxes and benefits. So how do I connect data from adaptive planning? Well, all I do is go grab the data I want. In this case is I'm looking for the taxes and benefits. There it is. I drag it over, drop it. Now I can immediately tell that data is connected because you notice how that row turned blue. And now when I refresh the data, it brings it in from the platform and bam, I've got my taxes and benefit data in there. So really easy to do. And it works the same with Word and PowerPoint. I just don't have time to show you that today. So I'm moving fast. I know I am. I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. I want to show you one last thing. How do you do a what-if analysis in adaptive planning? Okay, that's what everyone wants to know, right? So to do that, you know what? Let me go ahead and close down a bunch of stuff. Okay, so the first thing I want to show you is a report. And that report is my what-if financial statement and cash flow. Okay, so you'll notice what it's doing, and it's comparing two versions, and I'm going to show you forecast versus working budget right now. And you'll notice that there's a number of variances associated with my forecast and my working budget. So I may have done my forecast and my working budget, and I want to create another version of forecast that I can do a what if on. So here's the thing. Look at all these choices here. These are all my versions, right? The first thing I would do is I would go into my version section in my model management and create a new version. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a brand new version, and I'm going to call it forecast for demo. Okay. Now there's a lot of different options. Again, it's all about just configuration in adaptive planning that I can turn on and off. But the most important ones for our purposes is, what do I want to create this version based on? Well, if I'm going to take my one forecast that I've already done, and I want to make changes to it and see the impact, I'm going to want to create it on my current forecast. So I pick that. And one other important option is I want to add it as a report parameter to all of my reports. Okay. So I do that. And right now what it's doing, it's taking all the data in my forecast, millions and millions of cells of data, and copying them. Okay. And it's done. So you know, now I've got this forecast for demo available in my versions. Now, when I go back to this report and refresh it, and this goes back to the connectivity of all the pieces of adaptive planning, you'll notice in my drop down, I now have, where's my forecast for demo? I have to actually go back. I can't just refresh the report. I'm gonna go reopen the report. There it is. There it is, forecast for demo. So I just created forecast for demo a couple of seconds ago as my version. So now I'm going to compare forecast to forecast for demo, and I'm going to show you that they're an exact duplicate copy. You'll notice that all my variances are zero, right? Balance sheet, cash flow, everything is zero. There's no variances because I just created a copy. So now let's pretend, and we're going to do something fairly straightforward, but your system could be set up to do a lot of, more complicated things. Let's go ahead to a sheet, and let's go to our workforce sheet, our workforce planning sheet. Okay. Where did we see that before? I can't see it. All right, people, where's my workforce planning sheet? There it is. Oh, I just overwrote my report. That's all right. We'll go ahead and I'm going to now go to that workforce planning sheet for my forecast for demo version, right? And let's do it for Sales North. That's sort of the thing that we've been working with mostly. Okay. So now I'm going to make changes to my forecast for demo. This is like my what if analysis. And real quickly, let's just go ahead and copy some rows, kind of like 10 we're adding people, right? I'm just going to copy 3 rows and I'm going to save it. So now I've just added 3 people. Now I closed the tab, so I have to go reopen this report. I apologize for that. I could have done that in another tab. I just forgot to hit that little control button. When I go in and I look at my forecast versus my forecast, versus my forecast for demo, which had all zeros before, right? You can now see all the variances because I added those 3 people. Obviously, a lot of variance in my payroll, taxes, and benefits, but it carries those variances all the way down through my balance sheet, showing me cash flow, et cetera. That's how easy it is to do a what-if analysis in adaptive planning. Very, very easy. I'm sorry I made a few mistakes there and not keeping some of those tabs open. So that is all I have for everyone today. I'm sorry I'm 2 minutes over. I hate that, but I appreciate your attendance. Remember, we're going to be reaching out. We certainly appreciate you spending just a few minutes with you. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it wasn't too fast, and I look forward to talking with you folks again. All right, take care, everyone.